excellence and innovation, like Hao Dinh from Electrolux, who is joining us today. Hao, welcome, and very excited to have you here with us. I'll do a brief bio on Hao. He's the Director of Global Digital Industrial Operations for Electrolux, has over 20 years of experience leading digital transformation for Fortune 100 companies all the way to startups. Has 2 successful education nonprofits focused on nurturing the next generation of innovators, and recently completed a U.S. Navy SEALs training program. All right, the guys, the whole package. Don't mess with Hao, and I'm very much looking forward, Hao, to your presentation. You are the prototypical leader that I talked about just in my previous session, so it's a real pleasure to have you here with us.
Great, thank you for everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you everyone. Okay, so I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about how I use RPA, robotic process automation, to enable Industry 4.0. So with that said, just some quick background about myself. As Jose mentioned, I spent the past 20-something years leading digital transformation for various companies, and these are the companies that I work for and work with to drive digital transformation. Part of digital transformation is RPA and Industry 4.0. So the content I'll be sharing with you is my real-world experience doing those types of deployments for some of these companies. So with that said, some of the key takeaways that I want you to get from my presentation is I want to show that right now is the time for companies to deploy RPA. And I'll walk you through the rationale behind that. Also share with you why when you deploy RPA, it is a great tool to use to leverage for your Industry 4.0 projects. And then lastly, walk you through a few examples of how I've used RPA to enable success on my Industry 4.0 projects. So let's first start out and talk about what exactly is Industry 4.0. So if you see on the chart here, you'll see that we're going through we've gone through 3 industrial revolutions, and we're going through a 4th one. The first one was back in the day when we introduced the steam and water power into our factories. Industry 2.0 is when we started doing mass productions of our finished goods using electric power. And Industry 3.0 is where most companies are today, where we've automated our production lines. We have computers, IT systems, and robots helping us produce the widgets that we need for our customers. And then Industry 4.0 is where everyone wants to go to these days, which is the concept around smart factory, and where we use new technologies such as machine learning, which is artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, which is smart sensors, and then really more automation systems inside our organization or inside our factories. So what's really driving Industry 4.0? There's various technologies out there that are enabling us to do Industry 4.0. And here is some chart identifying some of these technologies. Artificial intelligence is a big one these days. Additive manufacturing or 3D printing is another big one. And the Internet of Things is something that I've worked with the companies around deploying associated with Industry 4.0. And why exactly are companies investing this time and effort to deploy these types of technologies? Well, if you look at a survey or research that was done by Boston Consulting Group, you'll see here that for various industries, in this case, they've looked at the benefits of Industry 4.0 for the automotive industry, the food and beverage, the components, and the machinery industry, and then they grouped everything else into others. You'll see here that a range of 10 to 30% productivity gains is associated with Industry 4.0 projects. And all of us are aware when you have productivity gains, you get a chance to lower costs, and when you lower costs, you get a chance to improve your profits for your organization. So a 10 to 30% reduction in cost is substantial for any organization. But before we start, talking about how great Industry 4.0 is, again, BCG did a study and realized that unfortunately, there's only about 30% of digital transformation projects, and Industry 4.0 is considered a digital transformation. Only about 30% of those projects actually deliver on the value that they promised. That means 70% of projects associated with Industry 4.0 are not delivering the 10 to 30% productivity gains that that was mentioned earlier. And then from my past experience, the reason or the main reason why Industry 4.0 projects aren't successful is the fact that unfortunately a majority of companies out there are still running their organization on paper and also running it using manual processes. If you look at the various technologies that I just showed you associated with Industry 4.0, you need digital data in order to have successful Industry 4.0 projects, right? If you don't have digital data for artificial intelligence, then the analytics associated with artificial intelligence aren't very powerful. If you don't have digital data that is generated from the Internet of Things, then again, you won't have successful Industry 4.0 projects. So the underlying factor that is needed to have successful Industry 4.0 projects is to have digital data. So with that said, if you're trying to deploy an Industry 4.0 project in an organization that is still running most of their operations on paper or manual, then you're really pushing a rock up a hill. And I've done that for a few of the companies that I work for, and I've learned from that. So what I want to highlight today is this is where RPA can come in and really help Industry 4.0 projects. Because when you digitize processes, you actually generate the digital data that is needed for Industry 4.0. So keep that in mind. RPA is a great tool to use to, again, enable Industry 4.0 because it generates the digital data that's needed. And also I want to highlight that now is the best time for companies to deploy RPA solutions. And the reason why I say that is, first of all, if you look at a study that was done by McKinsey, you'll see that they went out and looked at all the occupations and jobs that are, that are out there in the world. And on the average, 60% of the jobs that are out there, the occupations that are out there, is prime for some digitalization using RPA. And within that 60%, each one of those jobs that are listed, about 30% of the processes that are associated with that job, again, has an opportunity to be digitized via RPA. So this highlights the fact that there is ample opportunity in organizations, no matter what type of occupation that you have, to deploy some digitalization around your manual and paper processes. Also, I want to highlight that now is the right time because we've got proven RPA solutions out there. Look on the left-hand side and you'll see a Gartner report that shows the various types of RPA solution providers out there. And I've had a chance to work with a few of these, and I can tell you these are proven solutions. And also, the thing that these organizations have done around RPA is they developed either low-code or no-code solutions where you don't have to be digital or IT to deploy RPA. You can actually have your business owners develop their own RPA processes and solutions. So with the solutions being available, easy to deploy RPA solutions, and as McKinsey mentioned, there's a return on investment associated with a majority of the jobs and occupations out there for RPA. Now is the right time to deploy RPA. So what I'm going to do next, or for the remainder of my presentation, is walk you through a few examples of how I've deployed RPA, and most importantly, how I've used RPA to enable me to succeed with Industry 4.0 projects. But before we do that, let's actually talk about a terminology that I want to use going forward called digital fluency. So if you look at this chart, digital fluency is a terminology that Accenture has come up with to define how do our employees engage with our digital solutions, right? How do they engage with RPA? How do they engage with artificial intelligence? And if you look at the way they define digital fluency, you'll see that there's 4 major components. And really, only one of those components is related to technology, which is in orange. The other 3 main areas around driving digital fluency is around the change management associated with new projects. It's really getting your employees enthusiastic about that digital solution, getting them realizing that, yeah, there is benefit for me if I deploy and use that digital solution. And most importantly, making sure that they are trained and skilled to actually use that digital solution. So keep in mind this concept of digital fluency, because I'll share with you how I've used that as I deployed RPA and also used RPA to enable better, successful Industry 4.0 projects. Let's take an example where I went to an organization and I wanted to start implementing artificial intelligence solutions. And what usually happens is when you first start talking about artificial intelligence in an organization that has never really thought about it, there's an underlying understanding that needs to be understood to really understand the benefits of artificial intelligence, right? The audience needs to understand that in order for AI to be beneficial, you need a lot of big data, a lot of digital data. It also is dependent a lot on algorithms and statistics. So again, the audience needs to understand a little bit about how AI uses mathematical statistics to come up with its forecasts or predictions. And as you're aware, having these types of conversations around big data, mathematical statistics, and so forth is very confusing for an organization that has really not focused on this type of area. So what I've been able to do in the past, actually one of my key learnings is find an area that you want to deploy artificial intelligence in and look at first, before talking about artificial intelligence, why don't you go in and actually deploy RPA for that area? And by doing so, you do a couple of things that prepare the organization for the discussion around AI. You start collecting digital data that is needed for successful AI projects. And most importantly, you start educating that area of the business and improving their digital fluency so that when you finally bring up this more complex idea of AI, they're more open to it and more absorbent around supporting it and deploying that AI project. So let's go through a real world example. In this case, I wanted to do AI associated with sales forecasting, but before I talk about artificial intelligence, I looked at the process that the organization I was in around sales forecasting, and I can tell you this is probably what's happening in most organizations. The way they collect sales forecasting information is very manual and paper-based. In this organization, we had people going around collecting sales information on a sheet of paper, and then after they collected that information, they manually entered that information into their computer, sent out the information to various people, and then the various people had their own Excel pivot tables to go do their forecasting around sales. As you see, a very inefficient process and something that is ripe for RPA. So I went in and actually trained the sales team using a low-code, no-code RPA solution so that they actually built a digital and automated process around collecting sales forecasting data, where now, instead of a sheet of paper, they have a digital form that anyone with access to a laptop, an iPad, a smartphone can now use that form to start collecting sales information that can be fed into standard reports that now can be generated on the fly, resulting in sales forecast information. So if you compare the RPA solution, digitized and automated, with the paper process, definitely an ROI associated with, again, getting quicker, faster, and better sales forecasting data. And you've digitized the sales data. And thirdly, you've actually taken the sales team and increased their digital fluency and getting them to realize that, hey, this digital solution, RPA, is benefiting me, and I'm skilled to go develop my own RPA solutions, and I'm benefiting from this digital solution, increasing their digital fluency. So now you have an organization that has digital data and has a stronger digital fluency, and now is the right time to go in and talk about artificial intelligence. So now I will go to the sales team and say, hey, we've been able to take this paper process, digitized it. Actually, I didn't do that. You did this. You use RPA to digitize your sales forecasting data collection process, and then you have your sales forecast developed you in a report. But we have this thing out there called artificial intelligence. And right now, you're limited to, say, 3 months of historical data because, unfortunately, as a human, you can only look at so much past data and interpret it to actually help you determine your sales forecast. Also, right now, you have about 5 parameters that you use to help you, again, complete your sales forecast. When we incorporate artificial intelligence, because the data is now digitized, because of your RPA process, we can now use 3 years worth of data, because AI is strong enough now to take more data than we can humanly possibly look at, and then use that as our information to develop our sales forecast. And on top of that, AI is a piece of software where it's not limited to the 5 parameters that we use as humans to use forecasting. We can now expand it out to say 10 to 15 different parameters that we can use to determine, how does these certain parameters affect our sales forecast. So now using AI, you have better sales forecasts because you have 3 years worth of data that you're looking at, and about 3 times the amount of parameters that you could look at in the past. But now with AI, you can use a lot more parameters. And this type of discussion was only enabled because the team that was doing the sales forecasting before, their digital fluency has increased, so that now they understand via RPA the power of technology. So when I brought in the discussion around AI, they were more open and educated to have that discussion around how AI can benefit them. And then, as I mentioned before, RPA digitizes the information, so now all that digital data is exactly what you need to have a successful AI project. So that's the example associated with sales forecasting. Let's take one more example that I did in an organization where I wanted to bring in the Internet of Things, right? The Internet of Things are sensors that provide you very powerful digital information. So this use case is associated with inventory management. Again, very similar to our sales forecasting. This is a different organization, but they had a very manual, paper-based process where someone would walk around a factory and collect all the finished goods, work in progress, WIP items, all the raw materials that were used, and did it on a sheet of paper. I introduced the inventory management team to RPA, and they were able to build on their own, again, another digital entry form where now all the inventory information is collected via an iPad out on the factory floor. And then on a click of a button, they're able to generate their inventory levels reports that shows, again, how much WIP, finished goods, and raw materials they've used on a frequent basis. Very powerful. Similar to the previous example around sales forecasting, this inventory management team now has increased their digital fluency. And we've also digitized the information associated with the inventory so that we can generate these inventory level reports. So what I wanted to do now with this team is I want to talk about how do we use IoT to make our inventory management better. What I was able to do, because now they understand this concept of digital solutions and are open to looking at other types of digital opportunities. I talked about, instead of having a digital process to enter in your inventory information, why don't we put sensors, the Internet of Things sensors, in our production line so that it can tell you real time how many finished goods you've produced. Put sensors in our assembly line so that everywhere we have WIP, work in progress, it will tell you how much WIP we have in that area of the assembly line. And also put some IoT sensors in our material usage area so that, again, you can get real-time information around how much materials you're consuming. By having this IoT device there, you don't have to wait 30 to an hour for someone to walk around their iPads to collect that data for you so that you can get your inventory levels. With a click of a button, because of the IoT device, you can get real-time inventory levels inside your plant. Again, this was enabled because we were able to strengthen the inventory management team's digital fluency using RPA, and we also were able to start collecting digital data around inventory around RPA, and then show them that how IoT can make that digital collection much more powerful. So what I've learned through my experience driving Industry 4.0 and also RPA is, when you're trying to deploy an Industry 4.0 solution, example, I've shown artificial intelligence, IoT, and you're getting a lot of pushback because people really don't understand what you're trying to do, then take a step back and see if there's an opportunity, which I think there will be. There's an opportunity in that focus area to deploy RPA. And if there is, deploy RPA in that area, because by doing so, what you're going to do is you're going to start generating digital data that you need for your Industry 4.0 solution. And also you're going to improve the digital fluency of the people involved, so that when you're bringing up your Industry 4.0 solution, you'll have better results because they're more educated and enthusiastic about that Industry 4.0 solution, and you'll have the digital data that you need to actually deploy that Industry 4.0 solution. So just to quickly wrap up, as I mentioned earlier on, there's 3 things that I wanted to discuss with you. First is the fact that right now is the time for organizations to deploy RPA. McKinsey has come out with their research saying, hey, 60% of the jobs out there are ripe for RPA. Also, there are solution providers out there that have low-code, no-code solutions where you can have non-IT and non-digital personnel develop their RPA solutions. And so this type of ROI opportunity and the solution readily available is, again, an indicator that RPA, companies should be deploying RPA right now. I've also shared with you some examples of how I've used RPA as an enabler for Industry 4.0, right? Using RPA to build the digital fluency of the employees in your organization so that they'll be more educated and open to the various types of technologies that you want to deploy around Industry 4.0. So that is all I had, and I want to thank you for your time. And if you want to learn more about the things I've done around digital transformation, please visit my website, howdinh.me. Also, I love connecting with people via LinkedIn. Here's my LinkedIn link, or just look up Howdinh. And I look forward to Q&A and also connecting with everyone online. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Hal. Great presentation. Really enjoyed the presentation, and that example that you gave is such a wonderful example. I'm gonna ask you to stop sharing your presentation to the audience now, and I'm gonna come back with the camera for us to be on camera at the same time.
All right, where is that screen?
It's under the sharing tab on the right-hand side, and there is a button there that says stop sharing.
Oh yeah, that screen, that GoToMeeting has disappeared. Hold on, let me find it.
Yep. Sometimes it does get hidden in the background.
Yeah, where is it?
Sometimes on the right-hand side of your screen, it's there. And if you have a PC, you may want to hit Alt Tab until the GoToWebinar comes up front.
Okay, well, I hit it. That's what it was. Okay. You want me to stop sharing? There you go.
Yeah, there you go. You got it. You got it. Thank you, Hal. Terrific presentation. Thank you so much for that. And as the questions, I saw questions coming in as you're presenting, and we're going to address those. And any other questions that the audience has, please keep bringing them up. Let me bring up the panel here of the questions. And Hal, for one thing, that example was such a great illustration of the application of technology and innovation, and then the scaling of innovation. I love the fact that you demonstrated so many of the concepts that I talked about in the previous talk, which is like you have to have empathy for where organizations are at. You can't come into an organization that has paper-based systems and saying, "Are you guys ready for AI?" They're gonna fire you and everybody who looks like you, because it doesn't fit. And you did such a fantastic job of showing the evolution of the application. And first of all, thank you. What is your feel about the use of process mining? Is that something you have some experience with? The use of the technologies for process mining?
Yeah. Can you tell me what exactly is process mining? I might have done that. I just don't know what that definition is.
That's right, right? That's right. So, actually, we're going to have even a conference on that. That's going to be one of the sessions that we're going to focus on. And process mining is basically when you have this automated systems that are looking at the flows of your process and kind of like, identifying the real flow of the process, usually on highly automated transactional processes where, including ERP systems, we have a lot of transactions going on. And basically, it's a specialized application that maps the process as it's happening and tries to identify really opportunities for improvement and improvements in flow. I don't know if that's something you have played with.
No, but you know what? After this session, I'm gonna go look it up because that's something I want to do. That's actually I have not had experience with that.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna mention it's gonna be one of the series. We're gonna spend 3 days with 12 speakers just on process mining, and so that's great. All right, Marla is asking you here. It's a personal question. Marla is asking you? Did you study at Stanford by any chance?
Yes, yes.
You did.
Are we classmates?
So this is Marla Vanessa Jorge Zuniga. And I don't know, but she said, did you study at Stanford, Hal? Or I assume that's for you and not for me. I did not, but Hal did. So there you go, Marla. Connect with him and look up on his LinkedIn. Very good. So Hal, so how is the evolution, if you talk, another theme that emerges is maybe where you are right now at Electrolux. Tell me a little bit about what the company does, because I think people may not know very well what the company, what type of business the company is in.
Yes, so Electrolux is a global company that produces white goods, appliances, washers, dryers, refrigerators, freezers, ovens, and so forth. During COVID-19, it was considered one of the essential things that are needed during COVID-19 because more and more people were staying at home. So that means more need for a lot of people in the United States were getting a second refrigerator, freezer to store foods. Also, since people were cooking more at home, there were more need for upgrading their ovens and their stovetops and so forth. So yeah, so it's a white goods global company, and one of the things I can tell you is we were glad that we invested in RPA and Industry 4.0 before COVID-19 because that enabled us to produce more goods during COVID-19 because we had more automated systems. Because as everyone's aware, during the heat or the height of COVID-19, we had to do a lot of social distancing like we're doing today. And since we had a lot of our processes automated, we didn't have to have too many humans operating our production line. So again, the benefit of automation and RPAs was just exemplified during COVID-19.
This is great. This is actually a great segue for the next question, which is that you provided a really awesome example of RPA application in a transactional setting. Curious about, since you live in both worlds, both the transactional process side and the manufacturing process side, how do you see RPA applications in this transactional process world versus the manufacturing process world? Is there one that's more mature than the other? Is there different approaches that you use on manufacturing processes versus transactional processes?
Yeah, so I've had a chance to do RPA, as you mentioned, on the transactional side and in factories. And the process that I go through is who's got the biggest pain, because every organization, as McKinsey has identified, has manual processes. It can be in the front office, it can be in sales, it can be in operations, it can be in finance. Every organization that I've been to has manual process all over its organization. So what I've done is, hey, who's got the biggest pain? Because if they have the biggest pain, then they've got the biggest purse strings, and also the biggest, so funding is important, and also the biggest why to support this RPA process. So, from my past experience, it's not about, is it transactional or in a factory? It's who's got the biggest issue and who's willing to go fund it so that we do it right, and also have the right why so that when we ask them to go do the testing and validations and so forth, they know that when they do it, they get benefit out of it.
And from an opportunity standpoint, I have kind of a hunch, but I'd like you to confirm. Do you see more opportunities for RPA on the transactional side of the business or more on the manufacturing side of the business?
I would say both, because the problem that we're having, at Electrolux is we don't have enough people to go train our business personnel to do RPA on their own. We both have it. We have it on the transactional and in our plants. So right now, from my past experience, it is beneficial on both sides. And it all depends, like I mentioned, who's got the bandwidth to make sure that they commit to the RPA project, and then commit to the funding that's needed to get the right solution provider, to software solution provider to do the work for us.
That's excellent. Those are excellent insights. What do you think holds organizations back from doing more RPA and really enable the industry 4.0? What do you think are some of the challenges and barriers?
It is, from my past experience, I love this concept of digital fluency. And it's making sure that you bring the people along with you that you're deploying a digital solution for, right? And I'll be the first to tell you, working in various companies as a digital guy, I love the latest and greatest, and I go in, hey, let's do artificial intelligence. And yeah, there's a business case, but you go deploy it and you don't bring along the people that is going to be affected by AI. So learning from this concept of digital fluency, go in and make sure that they understand the three change management points around RPA or Industry 4.0. Why are we doing this? Not just because we're doing AI just because everyone is talking about how great AI is, but why are we going to use AI to improve sales forecasting? Because by doing so, you get a better sales forecast, right? You got 3 years of historical data that no human can look at, but AI can look at. Make sure that they're trained so that when you give them a recommendation, for example, from an AI, they actually understand what that means. So train them on the technology itself and how to use it. And then lastly, truly make sure they understand and experience the value, because RPA is such a great tool that once they deploy it on their own and they see the value, guaranteed they're going to start digitizing other processes that are manual in their daily jobs. So really, it's a change management thing that I think is holding people back, not the technology. But so if you can address that, then just step back and let your employees do what they do best, which is make their life easier using digitalization.
Those are great insights. Again, back to the concept of the importance of having the right people to scale some of these innovations for the organization, and building the capabilities. It takes time to build the capabilities, right? For us to learn new ways of doing work. And we set up from the beginning of the conference and the opening that what we're seeing is that there will be an expectation in the years to come that, as much as a college graduate knows how to work a spreadsheet, a college graduate will know how to do basic RPA. Going forward. Have ask you a final wrap-up question here. What, in your experience, to enable the Industry 4.0, who should be leading that in an organization? So you have worked across a lot of different organizations, cross-industry, really, where you see successful, sustainable implementation of technology. Who is taking the lead for that in those organizations?
Yeah, I've been through, as you mentioned, various organizations, and I've seen how it's done different ways. And I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all. But one thing that I've seen across the board that didn't work is having the IT or the technology group lead it, because again, you shouldn't be deploying RPA and Industry 4.0 just for the technology. You should be deploying it for the why, right? What business problem are we solving? And what I've seen, if you have IT lead it, IT does a great job of, hey, if you want us to go do X, we're going to do it the most efficient way ever, right? So if you tell them, hey, let's go do AI, they're going to do AI. But you really need the IT to partner with with the business side to understand what that is. And there are times where the business is like the chicken and the egg. The business side really doesn't understand why you bringing in AI, because they don't see the benefit of it. And then you struggle with that. So what I've seen organizations do is they bring in what they call a digital team. And the digital team's job is to be that bridge between, hey, here is a business problem, and this business problem can be used by this digital technology. And then work with both sides to make sure we're going together to go solve it. So it depends on the organization, but for sure, don't do a deployment of RPA and Industry 4.0 just because everyone else in your industry is doing it. Make sure you identify what the business reason is, the why, and then bring along, as I mentioned, for the people that are going to be affected to go do it. And then that I've seen has been very successful.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Dinh. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on behalf of the entire global audience that's here with us today. Very grateful for you to share your impressive expertise and with us today. We very much thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Dinh, head of intelligent automation, one of the leaders of intelligent automation for Electrolux with us. Thank you, Hal. It was a real pleasure to have you with us. And this concludes day 3 of our 3-day series on RPA and intelligent automation. So I would like to wrap up by thanking every one of you who participated with us throughout these 3 days, through your active engagement on the questions, through all the different presentations, from more technical presentations to business presentations to culture presentations. We covered the whole spectrum of meaningful transformations. So, and I'm very glad for your engagement. You can continue to have the conversation about this topic on our LinkedIn post. Just look under, you can look under my name, or you can look under the name of Vijay Bajar, who is the CEO of Proqis, and we have posts there that you can provide your comments, updates, questions. Both myself and the speakers look over those comments, and we appreciate your engagement on that. I want to say a big thank you to very important people who made this possible. Brian Raffel, who is our conference director and chief commercial leader, who did a fantastic job in organizing the event and all the speakers for us. Vijay Bajar, who is the CEO of Proqis Digital, and all of our sponsors, UiPath, Blueprint, BPMD, Signavio, for bringing a world-class virtual event to this amazing global audience of business transformation leaders, of innovation leaders, of excellence leaders in your own organizations and industries. So our next conference will kick off next week. The BTOES Digital Transformation Workplace Live. So it starts on February 23rd, and we go from February 23rd to February 25th. We have 12 amazing speakers lined up for Digital Transformation Workplace Live, and we'll be sending out the agenda. Make sure that you connect with us. Make sure that you register for that, because you have to register for every one of the conferences separately. And then I hope to see you back then next week for Digital Transformation Workplace Live. So for now, thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day and week.